One of the most mysterious camera companies I ever came across in my restoration adventures was something called Thornward. Their name flashed across my eyes when I pulled an old view camera out from the dusty corners of an historical home that I was working in. I'll get to that camera in a little bit, but for now, I want to focus on Thornward because there's a lot of information out there about this relatively obscure operation. In a sense, I want this video to be a primary resource for anyone who comes across their name. So with that out of the way, let's dive in. Thornward was the brand name used by Montgomery Ward and Company. Yeah, that company that kind of dominated suburban malls in the 80s and who was in stiff competition with Sears Roebuck back in the day. This was the name they sold everything under. Thus, Thornward was an amalgamation between Aaron Ward, the company's CEO, and his business partner George Thornward. And it wasn't just cameras that bore this name. You could find Thornward guns, Thornward music boxes, Thornward ringers, Thornward stereopticons, plows, magic lanterns, pretty much anything you can think of. In Jeffrey Pepper Rogers' 2001 book, Vintage Guitars, the Thornward brand was used for Montgomery Ward guitars from 1901 to 1910. However, most of these guitars were made by other manufacturers like Lynn and Healy. I find this point very interesting because more than likely the Thornward line of cameras were probably done in the same way. It wasn't uncommon for a large retailer to commission so-called white label camera manufacturers to produce lower budgeted products. In the case of Sears Roebuck, they relied on Rochester Optical to manufacture their cameras, and then sold it under their Sirocco brand. At least until they partnered with Conley, which took over camera manufacturing. There's no telling where Montgomery Ward sourced their cameras from, but considering their camera line began sometime in the 1890s, it's safe to assume they probably commissioned Rochester Optical, one of the big four in the camera industry. And that's where the history sort of ends. Montgomery Ward continued to sell cameras up until the 1990s under a litany of various house brands like Adams, Wardflex, Wards, and simply Ward. But let's go back to the 1890s and take a look at the old Thornward camera line because it's very interesting. And maybe we can contextualize the camera I stumbled upon. First we have the Thornward Baby, or the Garden State Baby Jr. I guess there's two types. Look at that! You get a 5x7 camera with a carrying case, all for the low price of $17, or $644.24 in today's money. That's a bit much. A basic Canon SLR is only like $300, so you're ripping me off, Montgomery Ward. Actually, it seems like the Garden State City line was what they called their average field camera. They were B and C models plus a wide-angle model in their 1897 catalog. I also stumbled upon this, a compact field camera that was sold under the Thornward name, but which I could not find in the catalogs. A folding Thornward number 20. A black beauty with an alligator skin-like trim. Beautiful. Around this time, Eastman Kodak was making big waves with his revolutionary line of box cameras, specifically the Kodak and the Kodak number 2. Montgomery Ward wanted a piece of the gangbang like everyone else, so they introduced the Thornward Dandy. This camera is just as its name indicates, a dandy. Aww. Yeah, this was a plate box camera aimed for the budget amateurs, the ones who couldn't afford a Kodak, so they had to turn to the off-brands. The Dr. Dynamite of box cameras. But look, I would kill and skin a human being for a Thornward Dandy. But by 1905, the Dandy got a huge steroid injection right to the scrotum. I mean, look at all of this shit! They were offering a whole developing and printing outfit. Alright, so you had the original Dandy, but now you had the Dandy number 2, 3, 4, and 5. It was all in the plate size, so it wasn't like you were getting anything new or revolutionary. And by this time, they were really leaning into the amateur market. So easily manipulated that a child, by following the few simple directions, can make most beautiful pictures. Alright, way to be passive-aggressive about it. This guy goes into more detail about the Dandy and how it functions, specifically the number 5, so I'll let him take it from here.
There are hidden buttons. There's one right here to open this piece, and then there's one on the back for opening your film chamber. It's a little bit stiff, and I don't want to break it because this guy is over 100 years old. The shutter has instant, which, like I said, is about a 30th of a second. It's got bulb, where it's open as long as you hold it. It also has time, where you click it once, it's open, click it again, it's shut. Before I forget, obviously it has a tripod socket, has another one here on the side, and it's got 2 separate viewfinders for whether you're in landscape or, like it is now, in portrait mode.
The Thornward Reliance was what they marketed as a perfect Christmas gift one year. Pictured on the left, this was Montgomery Ward's answer to the Kodak Premo daylight loading camera. As we can see, the full name was the Thornward Reliance Daylight Loading Camera. Daylight loading was a bit of a gimmick. All it meant was that the film or plates were pre-loaded, which made it easier for you to load the whole cartridge into the camera during the day. Unfortunately, I can't find anything else about the Reliance, other than this ad. The Thornward line of view cameras were sold under the name Chicago View and New Era, though I think in the case of the latter they were specifically telephoto cameras with reversible backs. That is to say, cameras whose ground glass could be reversed so that you could see the image upright. It's actually this line that the camera I found belongs to, though the name Chicago View and New Era was never stamped on its nameplate. Like I said, I pulled this camera out of the dark, musty confines of an old historical home, where it had been exposed to countless centuries of attic wear and tear. This thing was in rough shape. The bellows were caked in hardened grime and stuck together, the back door wouldn't close, the ground glass was broken, it was missing the entire front standard, it was virtually unusable. It took me about 2 hours to clean, polish, and air dust the whole camera. About 30 minutes to massage the bellows until they were clean and soft enough to extend. Then I applied some saddle soap and conditioner, and they looked brand new. A few months later, I found a spare lens, but the board was makeshift. With a bit of Celugel and Renaissance wax, I was able to stave any further chipping off the leatherette trim. In a matter of months, the old Thornward was looking pretty good. She's not unfixable. A skilled carpenter or cabinet maker could probably breathe new life into her, but for now, she's looking damn good. Yes, what I had in my hands was a Thornward Model A, and judging by the shape of the front lock, it was probably manufactured by Rochester Optical. The bellows is of Russian leather, and the lens is a rectilinear made specially for this camera. It is such a sadness that I will never find that custom lens. But you know something? I'm just happy this camera still exists. I came across a Thornward Model B, which was just as beautiful. But I have yet to find another Model A. And I think that rarity, this incredible discovery, is what makes me so thankful that I had an opportunity to restore it. These were just budget cameras. People threw them out once they broke or when they didn't need them anymore. It's a genuine miracle that this one slipped through the cracks and is still with us today more than a century later. Maybe one day, her eyes will open again and she will see the world anew. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe, hit the notification button, and consider supporting us on Patreon. We're just getting started, so stay tuned.